In this series, we follow a couple park rangers, people trained to handle anything nature throws at them, but nothing prepared them for what they found: a cabin marked with satanic symbols, human remains stacked like firewood, and a figure crouched in the darkness, grinning. Whatever it was, it wanted something. Welcome to Weird Encounters, a place where the ordinary fades into shadow and the unexplainable comes alive. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and become part of our ever-growing community of the curious. Now prepare yourself, because what you are about to hear is not for the faint of heart. This nightmarish encounter came to me from an anonymous email address claiming to be a park ranger. It raises a terrifying question. What is out there, and why is a ranger so scared to share this story publicly? If you or anyone you know has seen or heard of anything similar, please leave a comment. Now, enjoy the story. Thank you for letting me share my encounter. I've never told anyone this before because it still haunts me. As a park ranger for nearly 20 years, I thought I'd seen just about everything: missing hikers, bear attacks, forest fires, and even bodies. But nothing prepared me for what happened that night. For confidentiality and legal reasons, I can't tell you exactly where this occurred. But if you know your parks, you'll piece it together. All I can say is, it's a massive wilderness, somewhere in the northern part of the country. Deep forests with towering pines, rugged mountains whose peaks are snow-capped even in July, rivers that slice through the landscape like dark veins. The kind of place where the air is sharp and crisp, and the autumn arrives swiftly, turning green valleys to fiery reds and yellows in the blink of an eye. Most people who hike out here are seasoned adventurers, equipped for days off-grid. This is no casual weekend spot. Late September was upon us, and my partner Jake and I were doing our final backcountry patrol of the season. We were tasked with checking old shelters, those rustic stone and timber cabins built by the Civilian Conservation Corps in the 1930s. Most are barely standing these days, but some hikers or hunters still use them in emergencies. Our route was along a forgotten fire road, long reclaimed by nature, overgrown and silent, barely recognizable except for faded wooden markers every mile or so. We hiked about 10 miles in when we approached this one shelter. We planned on camping for one night. Immediately, something felt off. I'd been out here dozens of times, and I knew these woods intimately. But as we neared the cabin, there was an intense heaviness, a pressure in the air that pressed against your chest. It was similar to that feeling you get when you sense you're being watched by something unseen. Like entering a room after an argument, the tension thick enough to choke you. Jake must have felt it too, because we both paused, glancing at each other uneasily. Normally, wildlife is noisy around dusk. Birds chattering, distant rustling as deer move through brush. But here, nothing stirred. The woods around us had fallen into an unnatural quiet. The cabin itself stood quietly, darker and more ominous than it should have been. The front door creaked open slightly, like an invitation, or maybe a warning. Stepping inside was like entering another world. My flashlight beam caught strange carvings etched deeply into every wall, symbols I didn't recognize. Circles intertwined with jagged, angular lines. Pentagrams inverted, crudely carved, and stained darkly as if drawn in blood. I knew enough about dark symbolism to feel my pulse quicken. This was deliberate, ritualistic. And then I saw the bones. Not animal bones. They were clearly human remains, scattered and arranged carefully around the room like some horrific shrine. Many were still fresh, slick with blood, flesh clinging desperately to the surface. Hands, rib cages, pieces of jawbone with teeth intact. The grotesque display made my stomach turn violently, and I staggered backward, nearly losing my balance. Jake cursed loudly, stumbling back toward the door. "We gotta radio this in," he muttered, pale and shaken. My hands shook as I called the ranger station, trying to describe what we'd found. My voice broke several times. I struggled to find words for the sheer horror of it. Dispatch promised they'd send out an investigative unit immediately, first thing at dawn, instructing us sternly not to disturb the scene any further. Trust me, disturbing it was the last thing we wanted to do. By the time we left, darkness had fallen fully. Returning to camp was one of the longest walks of my life. Every rustle, every shadow sent jolts of panic through my veins. When we finally crawled into our tent, neither of us said a word. Sleep wasn't an option. We lay silently, rifles close, senses tuned to the slightest sound. All night, the feeling persisted, that awful sensation of being watched by a malevolent presence lurking unseen just beyond our sight. At around 3 a.m., the whispers began. I heard it first, faint and distant but growing clearer. My own name, spoken in a guttural hiss. Not human. Something deeply wrong, ancient and cruel, mangling the syllables of my name into a horrible mockery. Jake bolted upright, eyes wide with panic. "You hear that?" he whispered, voice cracking with fear. I nodded slowly, unable to speak. The whispers circled our camp, surrounding us completely. My heart pounded like it would break my ribs. Finally, gripping my flashlight tightly, I unzipped the tent flap just enough to look outside. My blood ran cold. Sitting cross-legged in the dirt just beyond the tent was a figure, a nightmare come alive. It resembled a human at first glance, but that illusion quickly dissolved. The skin was a sickly gray, sloughing off in ragged patches, revealing raw muscle and tendons underneath. Blood glistened darkly in the dim light, dripping slowly onto the ground. Its chest heaved rhythmically, though it shouldn't have been able to breathe. The fingers ended in long, filthy nails like razors, caked with dried gore. Its face was worst of all, a grotesque parody of humanity, sharp yellowed teeth jutting irregularly from blackened gums, an impossibly wide grin fixed permanently on its half-rotted face, and the eyes, solid black, glistening with malevolence, staring straight into me. It whispered again, my name echoing in that monstrous voice, mocking and sinister. My entire body froze, locked in terror. It raised one twisted skeletal hand slowly, as if waving hello or goodbye, a sickening gesture, deliberate and taunting. Adrenaline finally kicked in. I turned frantically, grasping desperately for my rifle, but when I spun back around to aim, ready to confront whatever hellish thing sat waiting in the dark, it was gone. Vanished completely into the night, as though swallowed by shadows themselves. Jake was staring into the darkness, breathing raggedly. "It darted off. Never seen anything move like that," he murmured shakily. "It just vanished." After that thing vanished into the trees, we stayed in a defensive posture all night, rifles locked, every muscle on edge. We covered our six and constantly were scanning the tree line in every direction. The darkness around us felt alive, closing in tighter with each passing hour, and just when I thought the worst was over, it came back. The glowing eyes appeared first, blinking in and out between the trees. Sometimes one pair, sometimes two. It would stay still for minutes, watching before melting back into the shadows without a sound. Every so often, that voice returned. Low, guttural sounds like drawing out the syllables mocking our speech. Other times, it whispered words I didn't understand, and would whisper our names. It was horrifying. Then came the sounds. Branches snapping in every direction, soft footsteps circling, even faint laughter that turned my stomach cold. I think it was waiting, testing us, lulling us toward exhaustion. Every time my eyelids grew heavy, another noise jolted me awake. I couldn't shake the feeling that the moment we let our guard down, it would strike. And yet, for reasons I still can't understand, it never did. Whatever that thing was, it could have killed us easily. It chose not to. Why? I've replayed that question 1,000 times. At first light, we broke camp without speaking, adrenaline pushing us through the hike back. The investigative crew met us at the trailhead hours later. We told them everything, every gruesome detail, every whisper, every glimpse of that thing. They stared at us like we'd lost our minds, but they couldn't hide their unease. They could see it in our faces. Something had happened out there. We took the investigators to the cabin. A few minutes later, after they entered, 2 of them came out, retching violently. I advised them to conduct the investigation quickly, tape it off, and come back tomorrow if needed. I told them not to be out here at nightfall. We then had a ranger escort us back to the station. The official report mentioned remains found in an advanced state of decomposition and possible evidence of illegal activity. Nothing about satanic symbols, nothing about what Jake and I encountered, no mention of the whispers, the thing sitting cross-legged in the dark, grinning like death itself. But we remember. All of us who were there that day will never forget what we saw. And we've warned everyone we care about. We tell them to stay out of the woods. They never caught anyone or anything that committed those crimes or matched the description. In the months that followed, I started hearing things. Quiet conversations among locals. Stories that sound like rumors. People vanishing from hunting camps. Voices calling their names at night. One old trapper told a friend of mine about finding shredded clothes deep in the timber, no sign of the body. Another swore he saw something crawling on all 4s across a fire road in the early morning, its limbs too long, its movements too fast to be human. There's something waiting in those woods, something not right. I wish I could share the exact location, but I can't for several reasons. If you or anyone you know has ever encountered anything like this, can you please share the experience in the comments section? I know this isn't the only occurrence, and I would love to know what we saw that night. The secrets of the Appalachian wilderness remain buried deep. Out there, something ancient waits, patient and hungry as the mystery continues. This is another park ranger encounter, and I was asked to keep real names and exact locations out of this story. What this ranger encountered is horrifying. And here is his story. I grew up exploring the outdoors, spending countless weekends camping, hiking, and fishing with my family. My passion led me to become a park ranger, and over the last 15 years, I've dedicated my life to protecting these remote Appalachian forests. I've participated in numerous search and rescue operations, helped stranded hikers, managed dangerous wildlife encounters, and survived severe storms. I've always considered myself well prepared for anything the wilderness could throw my way, but nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for the horrific encounter that still stalks my dreams. It happened in mid-February, following one of the most brutal snowstorms in recent memory. For 3 relentless days, snow pounded the mountains, cutting us off entirely from the outside world. The drifts rose high, the roads vanished beneath layers of ice and snow, and visibility was reduced to mere inches. After the storm passed, my duty was to inspect the backcountry shelters located about 10 miles into deep wilderness. The temperatures hovered dangerously below freezing, and the snow made each step exhausting and perilous. I set out early in the morning, trudging through snow that reached above my knees, feeling the biting cold seep through my insulated boots. It took hours to reach the first shelter. When it finally came into view, I immediately felt a sinking dread. The shelter tent had been viciously shredded, the fabric hanging in tatters as if something had torn through it with unimaginable force. Supplies lay scattered everywhere, abandoned in haste or ripped apart. Dark, frozen blood spattered the ground, a chilling testament to the violence that had occurred. Nearby, enormous claw marks gouged deep into a tree trunk, far higher than any bear could reach. Despite the shocking evidence, Dispatch seemed unusually dismissive. They instructed me simply to document the scene and continue on, their tone oddly detached. Following orders, I moved further into the wilderness, anxiety tightening my chest with every step. The second shelter was even more horrifying. Here, partially buried beneath snowdrifts, lay the mangled remains of something unrecognizable. Teeth marks indicated immense strength, and the grotesque wounds made my stomach churn violently. Once again, dispatch brushed off my reports, urging me to hurry and leave the area immediately. Nightfall came quickly, and I hastily set up camp near a frozen creek. As I warmed myself by a small fire, the silence was shattered by a sharp, piercing scream, unlike anything I had ever heard, inhuman, mournful, terrifying. My blood ran cold as I recalled the old folklore whispered by elders in the nearby towns. Tales of banshees, spectral beings known to wail mournfully before tragedy strikes. These cursed spirits, trapped between life and death, supposedly appeared as grotesque figures of dread, heralding imminent doom. Before I could react, it appeared at the edge of my firelight. A figure ghastly beyond words, pale as bone, draped in ragged, flowing garments that seemed to move independently of the wind. Its face was a twisted nightmare, decayed as if dead for centuries, yet still horrifyingly animate. Empty eye sockets stared into my soul, emanating pure, hateful malevolence. Panic surged through me like fire, and I stumbled backward into my tent, desperately grabbing a few essential items. Leaving most of my gear behind, I bolted blindly into the darkness, the snow hindering every frantic step. The forest seemed to close around me, trees reaching like clawing hands, branches scratching my face and limbs. I heard the banshee following, its twisted whispers echoing through the trees, unintelligible but filled with chilling intent. My energy drained quickly, and my lungs burned from the frigid air. After what felt like hours, I found a sheltered hollow beneath dense evergreen branches and collapsed, desperately trying to silence my rapid breathing. The creature approached, its footsteps crunching through snow, accompanied by grotesque mutterings. It passed close by, and time stood still, my heart pounding painfully in my chest. Eventually, the night's oppressive silence was again shattered by those haunting screams, evil and unnatural, echoing through the frozen landscape. I remained motionless, terrified, praying for daylight. Around 4 a.m, I decided it was safer to wait until sunrise before moving again. The dawn arrived painfully slow, its weak, pale light filtering through the skeletal trees. Cautiously, I began my journey back toward the ranger station. Just as I reached the edge of the dense woods, my heart stopped cold. There, in the harsh clarity of the morning sun, the banshee stood fully exposed, its form a horrific testament to ancient evil. The daylight revealed details I hadn't noticed in the dim firelight. Its skin was a sickly, translucent gray, stretched taut over bones that jutted sharply beneath. Decayed flesh hung loosely in patches, revealing gaping wounds that oozed dark, viscous fluid. Long, matted strands of hair, filthy and tangled, draped over its twisted shoulders. Its jaw hung at a grotesque angle, exposing jagged, broken teeth. Even at this distance, I could sense an overwhelming aura of despair and malevolence radiating from it. Frozen in terror, I watched silently, praying it wouldn't notice me. The creature moved with jerky, unnatural motions, its limbs contorting grotesquely with every step, as if bones and joints shifted beneath rotting flesh. It paused briefly, turning its ghastly, empty eye sockets in my direction, scanning the forest with a terrible deliberation. I held my breath until my lungs burned, every muscle locked tight, every nerve screaming to flee. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the banshee turned away, resuming its slow, painful journey deeper into the forest. I waited until it vanished entirely, swallowed by the shadows before daring to move. Shaking violently, I stumbled back to the ranger station, my mind a chaotic whirlwind of fear and disbelief. I immediately reported everything to my superiors. Within hours, the National Park Investigative Unit arrived. They confiscated my camera and phone, copying and meticulously deleting every photo I'd taken, every scrap of evidence I'd collected. Their faces were pale and grave, exchanging anxious glances as they quietly warned me to forget everything I'd seen. Local townsfolk continue to whisper uneasy stories of the Banshee haunting those ancient hills. Elders speak solemnly of an evil older than any of us can imagine, warning newcomers never to wander too deep. For your safety and for your sanity, heed their words. Stay away from these cursed woods. Some places were never meant for human footsteps. And so, another strange encounter fades away. A trick of the mind, or something far more unsettling. That's for you to decide. Thank you so much for watching my stories. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Your support is what keeps this channel going.